My name is Tuta. I am a football official from New Orleans, Louisiana. Um, I'm entering my 19th season officiating football. Uh, the vast majority of my time has been spent as a deep official, be it a back judge in a five-person crew or a field judge and primarily side judge over the past 10, 11 years. Um, so the majority of my time has been spent as a deep official. I really enjoy sharing some of the knowledge that I've gained over the years. And hopefully this session will be beneficial to us as we prepare for whatever comes our way. The goal for today is basically, in a nutshell, to get better. We all can get better, and we all should be striving to get better on a daily basis. And throughout, especially during the off season when we're not actively working, we should be working to get ourselves sharp with mental reps, having a better understanding of the rule book, understanding some of the football officiating philosophies. And this is what we should be doing during this time. So hopefully after we leave here today, we all will have something that we can put into our mental Rolodex to help us get better. So specifically what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about a little bit of positioning and movement. And then we're also going to get into some foul recognition, and the fouls we're specifically talking about are defensive pass interference and illegal blindside block. But specifically, we want to really harp and stress on positioning and movement. We know as deep officials, if we're working as a field judge or a side judge in a seven-person crew, or is a field judge back judge, I don't remember exactly what the designations are for a six-person crew, we're starting off 20 yards from the line of scrimmage. That's where we should be every time, minimum 20 yards. Now, sometimes we may not be comfortable being 20 yards, especially if we have these passing teams. And, we're seeing a lot more of spread out offenses with deep passes and everything. And talk to your assignment secretary. If you feel comfortable going a little deeper than 20 yards, then by all means, get where you need to get to be comfortable to be able to work the play. And we talk about from a back judge perspective. We start at 25 yards. That's back judge in a five-person crew, also back judge in a seven-person crew. Of course, one of the weaknesses of a six-person crew, there is nobody in the middle of the field, no back judge in the middle of the field to work that action. And again, if 25 yards, you feel like you need to get a little deeper, talk to your assignment secretary. I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you get a little deeper than 25 yards, but nobody should be any closer than that. That's when we start realizing we're getting out of position and everything. And then when we talk about movement, we want to discuss moving with a purpose, and we want to discuss being as stationary as possible at the moment of impact. And you're going to hear me talk about that and harp on that a lot as we watch some of these plays that we're going to watch. And we're going to look at our positioning and our movement throughout the time when we talk about our foul recognition as well. We're going to go through some slides that identify how and where to look to identify defensive pass interference actions. And then we're going to also talk about how to recognize illegal blindside block actions. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. I tend to get a little long-winded sometimes, so just get comfortable. I apologize to y'all. You can pause the video, come back if you need to, if you feel like it's going on too long. Lee told me 45 minutes to an hour. I'm going to do my best. So to try to keep myself on schedule, I pulled a whole bunch of plays. So we're going to kind of go rapid fire through a lot of plays and have a lot of concepts to discuss. But we'll see what happens. I get excited a little bit with some of this stuff. All right, position and movement. Let's talk about positioning. And when we talk about positioning, what do we mean? Basically, what we want to do is be in the right position to get the call right. That's all we're talking about with positioning. You can say all these words, strive to be in optimal position to effectively evaluate the action in order to display sound judgment. That basically means get your butt in the right position to be able to see what you're supposed to see, to be able to make the call, the right call. So get where you need to get to make the right call. And when we talk about movement, at the moment of impact, if we're still moving, our eyes are moving, and we can't it's much harder for us to have good sound judgment when our eyes are moving and we're not actually seeing the action to the level of detail that we want to see. So when the impact is imminent, and when we say the impact, what we mean is as the ball is arriving to the receiver, as the defender is nearing the receiver and the ball is arriving and all three are coming together. As the receiver is getting towards the sideline and he's going to maybe drag his feet in, we're talking about for catch, no catch, and we're also talking about for pass interference type actions. So when we say movement, when we talk about movement, when the moment of impact is imminent, distance is our friend, but movement is our enemy. So what that means is we want to get in the proper position early enough where we're not moving at the moment, at that critical moment when we need to really evaluate the action. So at that point in time, if we're still moving, we're going to have trouble truly seeing what we need to see to make some of these calls, which are very difficult calls in many situations. Okay. Okay, so let's get into a couple of play situations. Let's see if I can get my huddle up. And we're basically just going to look at some positions and positioning and movements. We already talked about initial positioning for field judges and side judges, 20 yards downfield, back judges, 25 yards downfield. Now, it becomes really critical when we get close to the goal line because now we're in a compressed situation. Okay, things change now. We're no longer 20 yards a lot of times. We may be closer than 20 yards. But when we have goal line responsibility, what we need to do is start on the goal line and end on the goal line. We don't want to move because that is our job to work that goal line. And that is a crucial, critical line. Okay, so if we look at the top, we see where the side judge is standing. What I would urge everyone to do, take a step back. We want to be 3 to 5 yards off of the sideline at the goal line extended. So where exactly do we want the side judge? We probably want the side judge to be standing right about here. Okay, a lot of times we'll see they have those G's on the field, you know, those goal line markers. Pre-game, what I do is I get all of that out of the way because that's where I want to stand. Okay, so really quickly, positioning on the goal line, think about standing goal line extended, and we don't want to move. Let's let the play out, and then we're going to actually focus on the field judge a little bit on this play as well, and let's see what we see. All right. See, as a field judge, what do we want to be? See what this blue cameraman is? That's really where we want the field judge to be. This cameraman standing here in blue, get him out the way before the play starts. We don't need to be rude. We don't need to be aggressive with him. Just, you know, Mr. Cameraman, I need to get right there. Mr. Cameraman, let me get right here, please. Back up for me if you don't mind. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. But this is where we need the field judge to be. Goal line extended, evaluating the action. Okay? Now, as the ball arrives, as I kind of just alluded to earlier when we were talking about movement and moment of impact, we need to be stationary. Because now at this point, what do we have to figure out? Okay, are we going to have pass interference or are we not? And one thing that I want to stress to us, if we're looking up at the ball, what we can't see is what is going on between the receiver and the defender. So do your best to avoid looking up at that ball. Work the action between the players. Okay? So recap. Goal line extended, which is right here where the cameraman is. And don't move. As we move, our eyes bounce. And we're actually subconsciously thinking about all kind of other things, and we just don't have the visual acuity that we need to have to be able to effectively judge on some of these very close plays. Now, as the ball comes in, again, good job getting set at that point, but we would like for you to be set. See, very set at this point as the ball is coming in, but we want you to be set where this cameraman is instead of where you are, because this goal line is very crucial. And then play is over, make your judgment, and then please face the players. We want to avoid turning our back to players, especially when there's opposite colors involved. So face the players as we give our touchdown signal. We don't need to turn and face the field all the time. All right. Let's look at the next play. Again, we're talking about goal line extended. Goal line extended. If we watch the side judge on this play as the play plays out, remember, we want to be goal line extended and we don't want to move. All right, see, now we probably forgot, side judge probably forgot, oh, Lord, I'm on the goal line. I don't need to be going backwards, because now he gave up the goal line. Then watch what he's going to do. He's going to come back up to the goal line. And then, of course, the player is going to threaten the pylons. Then what is he going to do? Back up to the goal line extended. Now, imagine had he started right here, then he would not have had to move for the entire play. So what I want to stress to everyone, start goal line extended, stay goal line extended. We're talking to field judges and side judges right now when we start at the goal line. All right, next play. Same deal. Side judge at the top. We want you to be goal line extended. Take a little step back. There should be a lot of these stadiums, if they're marked, if the field is marked properly, there should be a limit line back there. This one doesn't look like it has one, but that's where we want to be, okay? And then as the play develops, let's see what happens at the bottom of the screen with the field judge. All right, see how we're moving at the moment of impact? What we want to see is we want you at this point right here to start settling down and getting stationary. Why? Because we really need to know what's going to happen with this defender as he approaches the receiver. He's beat, right? And he's not playing the ball. So one thing he's probably going to try to do is reach out and grab the receiver's arm, grab the receiver's waist, or he might just dive and try to tackle him. Okay? So we need to be able to see all of that action. We need to know, did this, whatever contact, if contact occurred, did it occur prior to the pass arriving, or did it occur as the pass was arriving? Okay? And the other thing we need to know is, as this receiver is diving for the ball, and if we're moving, we may not be able to really accurately judge it. Let's see if I can stop it. At this point in time, of course, let's pretend like the ball was right here in the receiver's hands. At that point in time, did the receiver trap the ball? Did the ball hit the ground? Did the receiver have his hands under the ball? And if we're moving and we're running at that time, it'll be very difficult for us to really know and really have that vision to be able to tell what really happened. Okay, this is a 6-person crew. So we do have the field judge. And it's okay. You know, last time I said get on the goal line and stay on the goal line. Well, if we have a pass play like this that no longer threatens the goal line, it's okay to move a little bit, but we want you to be set at this point. Especially, this is a 6-person crew, so we don't have a back judge working that end line. So we know we may need to get a better view of that end line. So it's okay if we're working in a situation like this with no back judge. It's okay to come off the goal line into the end zone if the pass play in the air is no longer threatening the goal line. You know, the first play we looked at, the pass play was threatening the goal line, so we do not want you to move. But in this situation, the pass is clearly in the air, not threatening the goal line. So it's okay to move a couple steps off the goal line, but we want you to be set as this action is imminent. Okay? Now, pretend like we were working a 5-person crew and we had a back judge standing here underneath the goal post, or had he moved a little bit, probably standing about right here. And again, we want you to get set. Your view would be here, so you may not have a good look at that ball, what happens with that ball as it comes into the receiver's hands, you know, if he caught it. So we would expect at that point, you have a line judge who's coming up the field. So we would expect you as the back judge to take a look at the line judge before you make any kind of ruling on the catch. And I know we're not really getting into catch, no catch today. You know, I'm kind of getting a little bit off track, but just think about it from a back judge perspective if we were working a 5-person crew. All right. Let's look at another play. Next play, this is a punt play. We're going to talk about positioning. I know we're not talking about punt plays either. Man, we can do 2 hours on punt plays. But let's talk about positioning again. As the punt goes on, boom. where the back judge is. Remember, if we're working 5-person crews, as a back judge, you have support from the line judge who's coming downfield at the snap. So back judges, we need you on this side of the returner. The opposite side of the returner from the line judge, so that we don't have overlapping coverages, especially 5-person crews when we have so much more area to visually cover. We need to be a lot more disciplined with our positioning and our movement. So on a play like this, back judge, we expect you to be on the opposite side of the returner, okay? Because now, as we look here, we have the line judge with an inside out look. And when I say inside out, what I mean is from the sideline, outside in look, from the sideline towards the middle of the field. Line judge has an outside in look. Back judge has the same outside in look. If the back judge was in a position where we would prefer him to be over here, he would have an inside out look. And he would be able to work some of this action over here instead of being really looking at the same thing that the line judge is looking at. Okay, as we let the play go on, there's going to be up in the upper left-hand corner. Let me put my little circle over here. If we look in the upper left-hand corner, there's going to be some action that right there at the 40-yard line. We don't know what happened there, but that'll be something that perhaps if the back judge was in a position that we would want him to be in, he may be able to see. Not saying that's a foul or not. We'll get into illegal blindside blocks a lot later. But that's something that we would hope that the back judge would be able to evaluate had he been in the position where he had the inside outlook. All right, let's get into the next play. And we're going to go through a bunch of plays here today, so stick with me. All right, here we go. Another punt play. This play, I want us to focus on the back judge's movement. There's the punt. Returner catch the ball. Look at the back judge. Watch him move, watch him move, watch him move, watch him move. He didn't move a muscle, which is great. Remember we talked about being stationary? When we're stationary, we have a perfect look at everything. And don't be feeling like, oh, I need to be a little closer to the action. No, your vision is just as good at 30 yards as it is at 25 yards. Should be. So if you're a back judge at this point and you say, well, I need to run forward 10 more yards so I can see what happens. No, you don't. Stationary, stationary, stationary. And what's going to happen is our back judge is going to pick up. Watch this dude right here, this red dude. Back judge is going to do a great job picking up an illegal blindside block. Great job, but the point of this play is great job being stationary and not moving until you have to move. Now the return is starting to move upfield. Now the back judge is moving. Okay? So really good things to think about from a positioning and movement standpoint. I know we're not talking about punt plays. I wish we had a whole nother module. We'll do 2 more hours on punt plays. But that's not what we're talking about today. So those couple plays were just to talk about our positioning, our initial positioning, and our movement. Now we can start looking at some defensive pass interference concepts. Let me see if I can switch back. All right. So there are 6 categories of defensive pass interference. If we see some action on the field and we cannot put it into one of these 6 categories, then we most likely did not have pass interference. Okay? First category, not playing the ball. And I put a big bold with right there because we need to have early contact as well. And when we say early contact, contact that is clearly prior to the ball arriving. Okay, so not playing the ball with early contact is our first category. And I put these categories in the order of the most frequency that we see at the high school level, especially in our state as well. Not playing the ball with early contact. And we'll look at some pass routes in a couple slides, and we'll talk about where we would see some of these actions as the route develops. Okay, next category, grab and restrict. You see that big bold and? Just grabbing a receiver does not constitute a foul. We need to see some restriction as well. Okay, so grab and restrict is our next category. Next category, hook and turn. When we say hook and turn, what does that mean? Let's say the receiver puts his arm around, the defender puts the arm around the receiver's waist as the ball is coming and he's trying to play the ball. He put that arm around the waist and then he turns him. Everybody has seen that. Or you'll see the turn at the shoulder area. And in a little bit, we'll talk about a strike zone and we'll talk about where we need to look, where our eyes need to be focused. Okay, so hook and turn is the next category. Next category, playing through the back. That's when the receiver is between the defender and the ball. And the defender, the only way he can get to the ball is to go through the receiver's body. We call that playing through the back. And we'll look at some plays with some of these concepts as well as we go through. Next one, cutoff. What's the cutoff? Well, the defender just basically stops the receiver from continuing to run his route. A lot of times we'll see that on those long developing go routes, fade routes. And sometimes we also see it when the receivers are cutting across the field. If a safety drops down or the linebacker sees the receiver coming across and just cuts his route off. Okay, so cutoff is basically when a defender stops the receiver from continuing his route. Next, arm bar. We see these especially on long sideline routes, where the defender and the receiver are somewhat running next to each other. The defender realizes the receiver's starting to get away from him. Well, he'll stick that arm out right in front of him and basically prevent him from continuing his route. Arm bar is very similar to cutoff, but we see that's another one of the categories. So again, if you see action on the field and it doesn't fall in one of these 6 categories, then you very likely did not have something that qualifies for defensive pass interference. Now, where do we look? Baseball has a strike zone. What is it from, I guess, the armpits to the knees, something like that? I like to think when we are evaluating pass interference that we have a strike zone as well. From the shoulders to the waist. Almost every single pass interference action that you'll see is going to occur between the shoulder and the waist. So that's the area we really need to make sure we get our eyes to. We realize the ball is coming our way, and now we want to know where to look. Look straight into that strike zone. And we're going to look at that in a bunch of plays, and we'll talk about that concept and harp on that a lot. Okay? Focus on that strike zone. Now, when we see pass interference action, it's a 2-step process. We see one of these actions, we'll see a grab, we'll see a restriction. Next thing, what do we have to do? We have to find the ball. If there's no pass, there can be no pass interference. Now, you may have a different foul. You may have a holding, defensive holding or something like that. But if there's no pass, you can't have defensive pass interference. Very important to understand that. If the pass does not come to the receiver who has been restricted in a way, we can't have pass interference. So it's a 2-step process, and we need to make sure that we see the restriction and then find the ball. All right? Now, when we talk about that, let me go back to huddle. Okay, let's look at the number 3 receiver. And when we say number 3, we count from the sideline towards the middle of the field. So this will be the number 1 receiver. This will be the number 2 receiver. And this will be the number 3 receiver. All right, and if we talk about initial keys, and I don't want to get too deep into initial keys because we're not talking about that today. We talk about foul recognition. But let's talk about initial keys. If we're working a 5-person crew, this is why it's so difficult. As a back judge, you have to focus on, you have to focus on both of these 2 receivers, right? And then you would expect the line judge to be focused here, and you would expect the head line judge to be focused here when we read pass. And then as the play develops, we go into whatever other areas of responsibility we have, okay? In a 6-person crew, wait a minute, I'm embarrassed to say it. I'm not 100% certain, but I believe in a 6-person crew, we work the outside 2 receivers. And I'm sure someone will correct me. I'm not going to look this up in my, hold on. I will look this up. In a 6-person crew, okay, in a 6-person crew, we will be focusing on the outside receiver, and I would really prefer if we focused on the 2 outside receivers as the field judge, and then we have our line judge, who I think by mechanic is focusing on the inside receivers as well, and then at the top we have our what is the 6-person called? Is this a back judge or a side judge? I never remember. Whatever he is, back judge, side judge, he's focused on that outside receiver as well. Now, you see we have multiple areas of responsibility from an initial key standpoint when we work in 5 and 6. Now, in 7-person officiating, why is it such a beautiful thing? Because we all have one eligible receiver that we're responsible for. If we start at the bottom, field judge, focus here on the widest person. Back judge, focus here, number 3 receiver. Line judge, right here, number 2 receiver. Headline judge, right here, the back in the backfield. Side judge, right here, widest receiver. Okay, so now you see we have all of the eligible receivers covered by an official. And that's why 7-person mechanics are so valuable and so helpful, especially as we see the proliferation of these spread offenses and everybody's throwing the ball all over the place. And it's very difficult for us to work, in 5-person mechanics when we have these offenses like this. Okay, anyway, see, I got off topic. I knew that would happen. All right. We're looking at the number 3 receiver from the bottom. Okay, let's watch what happens. Runs a post route or a slant route, and what does the defender do? Grab them. Okay, clear and obvious, grab and restrict. But what do we need to do once we see the restriction? Look back, find the ball. Well, guess what? The ball's already in the air. The ball's going to another place. We do not have a foul for pass interference. Had the ball come to that receiver, then we would have a foul for pass interference. And what category would we put it in? Grab and restrict. Remember, we want to have a category for everything we do. So this play is just to illustrate the 2-step process. We need to see the action, and then we need to find the ball. Okay? A lot of times we would already know the ball's in the air to our receiver, but in this case, there's the action. The ball's in the air, but it's going to another receiver. So we would not want to have a flag for pass interference on that action. And for clarification, we wouldn't want defensive holding as well because the ball is already in the air and is going into another location. Okay? All right, let me go back to my slideshow. And let's look at, All right, let's look at a couple pass routes and see, as the routes develop, what kind of pass interference action will we see. So let's look at the square out first on the left-hand side of the offensive formation. As the receiver makes his break, grab and restrict. That's what we need to be focusing on. The receiver cuts across the defender's face, starts getting away from him. He's going to try to grab him and not let him go. Okay? And then if the pass comes right there at the break, well, that's what we would have. But let's say that the route continues a little bit further towards the sideline, and then a pass comes as he's running closer to the sideline. Then we would see a hook and turn. That's when the defender would be maybe trailing him or coming up from behind him, and he'll hook the arm around the waist and try to play the ball. So those are the 2 DPI categories we will see on an out route. And these are we're going to look at just some of the common routes that we see in high school football. Next is the corner route. Again, at the top of the receiver's route, which means, basically when he's making his break, grab and restrict. The receiver makes the break to wherever he's going. Cornerback gets beat, grab and restrict. And then as we get further, as the route develops, this is a little bit of a longer route. If there's some separation between the receiver and the defender, at that point, the defender's like, oh, God, I got to catch up. If that ball is coming, now he's just running, trying to, try like heck to catch up. Now he's not playing the ball. Now we need to see, that's the type of category we may see on a pass route like that. Also, let's say the defender's a little bit closer and he has better coverage on the receiver. Well, as the ball's coming in, what is he going to try to do? Grab that arm, grab that hand, and stop him from getting that hand up to catch the pass. Okay, so then we'll see another type of grab and restrict. So we'll potentially see grab and restrict twice on a route like this. But of course, the first type of grab and restrict at the top of the route, most of the times we'll see that around the hip. The grab and restrict that we see deeper on deeper routes, we see that more at the hand and the arm. Okay, and remember, we're talking about that strike zone again. All right, next, comeback route. Very similar to a curl route as well. Look at that. At the top of the route, we're going to see grabbing and restricting. Common, very common. As the receiver's making that break to come back to the ball, he'll grab him and restrict him. And then what we'll see is playing through the back. Remember, we have a comeback. So now the receiver's coming back towards the quarterback. The ball is on the opposite side of the receiver's body. And if the defender is behind him, the only way he can get to that ball is to go through the receiver's body. So that's when we will see playing through the back. If we look at the arrow routes, the receivers make that little diagonal out towards the sideline, then they cut straight across the field. Again, on the break at the top of the route, we'll see grab and restrict. As the route develops a little bit more, if the defender's playing tight coverage, we could see hook and turn, where he's grabbing him around his waist or around the shoulder and turning him prior to the ball coming. And we also could see not playing the ball. This would be similar to when a linebacker, the linebackers like to clear out that middle, and any receiver who comes across, they like to block him and bump him and chuck him. Well, if he's blocking him and bumping him and chucking him while the ball is in the air, well, he's not playing the ball, and that's pass interference. So we'll see that sometimes, and we'll also see sometimes the safeties coming down and trying to interrupt that route. That's what we'll see not playing the ball at that stage of this route. Let's look at the in cut. Receiver goes up and then cuts in towards the middle field. Very similar to an out route, except it's just mirrored 180 degrees the other way. They just cut into the middle of the field instead of to the sideline. And again, crossing that cornerback's face, he's going to be beat. What is he going to try to do? Grab him. So we'll see grab and restrict right at the cut, at the break. Then as the route develops, much like the out routes, we'll see hooks and turns, and we also could see not playing the ball if we get to the middle of the field where we're talking about the linebackers and the safeties as well. Okay, we also talk about slant route. 1, 2, 3, cutting across the field. Really quick route. If we're playing, especially if we're playing man-to-man defense, we'll see that grab and restrict again right on that break. And then as the ball is arriving, if it comes really quickly, we'll see that hook and turn as the defender's trying to reach around the receiver to make a play on the ball. Then we look at the post route. Very similar to a slant, except it's just a longer developing route. And then again, grab and restrict right at the top of the route. And then as the play develops, this is a long pass. So the ball will be in the air a long time. If the defender, if there's some separation between the wide receiver and the defender, what will we see? The defender going crazy, trying to catch up, not playing the ball. Then we could see some early contact at that point. So that would be a not playing the ball category. And we also, again, just like on the corner routes, we'll see some grabbing and restricting of the arm and the hand as the ball is arriving from the defender. Okay, next set, and these are the last set we're going to look at, then we're going to get into some plays. When we see some double moves, as the wide receiver is making his second move, of course, the cornerback's beat. What is he going to do? Try to grab him. Again, right on the break. Grab and restrict. And then if he can't grab him and if he's really beat, what we'll see, he'll just try to cut his route off. He'll just jump in front of him, or he'll just take his body and try to ride the defender out towards the sideline, out to the boundary, and we'll see a cutoff. And if the play develops a little bit longer and they get all the way downfield and a pass is coming for one of those long passes, what do we see? Not playing the ball. And then as the ball is arriving, we'll see grab and restrict again, trying to grab the arm, trying to grab the hand. Now, a lot of times you see not playing the ball in a lot of these long routes simply because in high school football, a lot of our quarterbacks just don't have the arm strength to keep up with the speed of the wide receivers. So the ball will be in the air a long time. We'll have separation between the receiver and the defender, but then the receiver has to really slow down because the ball is underthrown. The defender, not playing the ball, has no idea where it is. Now he's running into the receiver. Okay, last route we're going to talk about is a go route or a fade route. They're very similar, except the go route is more vertical than the fade route. What do we see in those type of routes? We'll see the arm bar. Very early on, if the defender is beaten and he feels like it's going to be a longer route, he'll stick that arm out and try to slow the receiver down. So we'll see an arm bar. If the arm bar don't work, they'll try to cut him off. Just try to jump in front of him and cut his route off. Then as the pass play develops, if we have a long pass, we'll see it not playing the ball. And then if we do have close coverage, again, what are we going to see? Some grabbing and restricting. Going to try to grab that arm, try to grab that hand as the ball is arriving so the receiver can't get his hands up in the air to make a play on the ball. Okay? So those are some of the routes that we see and what part of the route we will see different type of categories of pass interference. I thought that was a little bit interesting. Hopefully that's something that'll help us as we evaluate some of these pass plays. And then we also need to constantly think about our positioning, our movement, our strike zone. And then after we see and evaluate the action, then we can start putting things into categories and thinking about, okay, what kind of category was that? Did I really have pass interference? Did I not? Let's go to some plays. All right. First play, we're going to look at the number one receiver at the bottom. Remember, we talked about these are we're going to look at some hook and turns. Okay, number one receiver at the bottom. I'll let it play and then we'll go through it again. Ball's arriving. That's what a hook and turn looks like. Remember, we talked about the strike zone. All of our action is going to occur right here, right in between these areas. So if we're evaluating, that's right where we need to be looking. I want our eyes to be right in, I'm having trouble drawing a line. I want our eyes to be right here in that strike zone. We know the ball is coming. We don't need to watch the ball. We need to watch the players. So we need to be evaluating all of the action, and that's right where we need to look because that's where everything is going to occur, okay? So again, hook and turn. Defenders beat, hooking the receiver around the arm, and then he's turning him. As the ball is arriving, look at the way the receiver is facing. Can he really catch a pass like that? Is he really trying to catch the pass like that? So it's very obvious hook and turn on a slant route. We'll look at it one more time. Boom. All right. There's the foul. All right. Next play. What are we looking at? Uh-oh. What's going on? All right. Here we go. Number one receiver at the bottom is what we're looking at. We're looking at a hook and turn on an out route. Okay, let's look at it again. Remember we talked about it, as the receiver crosses face, right at the top of his route develops. Defenders beat, and he realizes, so now I got to go hurry up and catch up, and now the ball's coming, so I better grab this dude and try to make a play on the ball. And then again, you see the receiver's back is to the ball, and this is the end zone view of it. So that's what we're looking at a hook and turn on an out route. So we saw a hook and turn on a slant, and we saw a hook and turn on an out route. All right, arm bar. What are we talking about here? So we're looking at the number one receiver at the bottom. Here is why it's so difficult as well if we work in 5-person mechanics. In this game, I believe we're working a 6-person crew, but this is why it's so difficult to work 5-person mechanics. Here we have people spread out all over the field. We have 4 wide receivers. And we're going to let it play out a little bit. And we're going to talk about what the arm bar looks like. Now, if I'm a back judge, now the ball's in the air, I know that. But right before the ball got in the air, if I'm a back judge, where am I supposed to look? Am I supposed to look here? Because he's the closest to me and he's kind of the deepest to me. Am I supposed to look here? This dude is about to get grabbed maybe and fouled. Am I supposed to look here? This dude is about to get grabbed. But then we know we got our line of scrimmage, hopefully, in the 5-person crew working that area. Or should I look here? So as a back judge, remember, you got a lot of decisions to make. But in a 5-person crew, we work the middle of the field essentially. But that makes it very difficult because now we have to really switch our vision. Ball's in the air, and now we have to switch our vision over to the side, and we may not catch all of the action. So again, see, I'm getting off topic again. We're talking about arm bar. Let's watch the defender. As the receiver starts getting by him, he sticks that arm out in front of him and basically tries to prevent him from going downfield. That's an arm bar. Now, here's a little tip for our field judges and side judges. If a wide receiver takes an outside release, get ready because it's probably going to be a go route. If the wide receiver takes an outside release, get ready. It's probably going to be a go route. All right. In this case, the wide receiver took an outside release or tried to. And that's what they were doing, throwing a deep pass. All right. This one it has a really good view, and I'll kind of walk us through something of the way I would love to see us process a play like this. Let's let it play out a little bit. First of all, notice the field judge at the bottom cleaning up his office. He's looking at this coach. Coach, I'm coming that way. Coach, I'm coming that way. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Coach, I'm coming that way. You don't have to be ugly. You don't have to be mean, but get him off the field because you're going backwards and you can't see behind yourself. All right, so let's let this thing play out. We're looking at the number 1 receiver. He's on the left of the screen. You can't really see the receiver, but you'll see it as the play starts, okay? Let's fast forward a little bit. All right, outside release. Remember we talked about that, huh? Outside release. Now, what we just saw from our peripheral vision, we should be able to see that the ball is in the air. Now we know the ball is in the air. If we see this outside release, what I would do is I would stop backpedaling and I would open my hips and I would turn and run because I want to get a lot of space between myself and the wide receiver and the defender so that as the action is imminent, when the impact is imminent, when that ball gets there, I can start getting settled in and evaluating the action. At this point, the ball is in the air, which means what? Pass interference restrictions have begun for the defense. So, strike zone. Remember we talked about the strike zone. What's going on with this hand right here? That's what we should be focused on if we're the field judge at the bottom of the screen right now. We need to know what is happening with that hand. And let's let the play develop a little bit. He's sticking his arm out there. We're looking at potential arm bar. And now the receiver's body is turning. And notice the field judge he's turned and running. I would like to have had you move a little bit better than that. You moved about 10 yards, and the receiver's moves about 25 yards. We don't have to be super fast, but we just need to be prepared to move. And that's why we're talking about some of these concepts. Take outside release, get on your horse and start moving because you want to have some space. Now as the ball is arriving, the impact is imminent, we need to be prepared to evaluate the action. Let me go back a little bit more and just show the play. Okay. Now we see what happened. The receiver is being prevented from making a move to come back towards the middle of the field to play on the ball. Is the defender playing the ball? No, he is not. He's playing the man. He's reaching out. He's arm-barring him. He's grabbing him. So what category would you put that in? You could put that in 2 different categories, I would say. You may say arm bar, but he pretty much ran right through the arm bar. But he clearly clearly turned the receiver while not playing the ball. So you really could say not playing the ball with early contact. Now, here's the difficult thing that we face, especially if we don't get enough depth. We can't really see through this body to see what's going on with the defender on the other side of that receiver. This is why we really need help from our back judges to see all of this action. So in a 5-person crew, as a back judge, you would have a perfect view of this. In a 7-person crew, as a back judge, you would have a really good view of this action. Unfortunately, when we work 6-person crews, we have a field judge on this side, and we have the back judge or side judge, whatever they call them, on the opposite side. And I don't recall if we get onto the field or not. I believe we do, maybe. We'll be on the numbers, maybe on the opposite side of the field if the ball is snapped on this hash. But yeah, that'll be a very long way for them to look and see. So this kind of an area where we would have a lack of coverage. Okay, but that's what we would need to see. We want to see that strike zone. We want to see what's happening in that strike zone between the defender and the receiver. And that's one where we would see pass interference. And we got a back judge. This was a 7-person crew, and we ended up picking that up. And this is just a wide view of that play. We skip past that. Oh, shoot, I skipped again. We go back. Okay, we're going to talk about cutoffs. Last play, we looked at an on bar that kind of turned into not playing the ball, kind of turned into a cutoff. We're looking at the number 1 receiver at the bottom here. Okay, let's see what happens. Again, outside release. What does that mean? He's probably going up the field. Defender's already beat at this point in time. Okay, we playing man-to-man defense. He got free release. He's already beat. Now, what is he going to do? I'm just going to ride the receiver out of bounds. That is a cutoff. Not playing the ball and just he's playing the man, and really he's just preventing him from going where he wants to go. Very difficult to notice from a back judge perspective. Let's say if we had a back judge in the middle of the field and this was his view, he may not have the depth perception to notice that as this defender contacted the receiver was probably 3 to 5 yards in the middle of the field. By the time the action ended, look where the receiver is. He's pushed all the way to the sideline. His route is cut off, and the defender is the reason why his route is cut off. So this is what we would see, something like this. We would call this a cutoff. So that's what a cutoff looks like. Cutting the receiver's route off, preventing him from going up the field. All right, Mr. Field Judge, let's make sure that we have the awareness of where we are on the field. We can't be backpedaling past the goal line. This is where we want you to be, right here. Evaluating that action from right here. Goal line extended, right at that limit line. All right. Let's talk about playing through the back. We're going to look at the number 1 receiver at the bottom. He's not on the screen at this point in time, but we'll see as the play develops. We'll see what happens. This is what playing through the back looks like. Remember, we talked about the receiver where the ball is on the opposite side of the receiver from the defender. The defender at this point during the play only has one option. He can either wait for the ball to get to the receiver. Well, that's probably not the best option because then he can't do nothing, right? Or he can go through the receiver's back to make the play. So this is what playing through the back looks like. The defender's going through the receiver's body to make a play on the ball. All right. Again, we talk about playing through the back. Here's an interesting scenario that we see. This is a defense is playing a zone defense. So we talked about the grabbing and restricting at the top of routes. But notice on this route, let's start with the number 1 receiver at the bottom. Watch what happens when he gets to the top of his route. Nobody's around him. He's running like a little post. Nobody's around him. He can run free. He can make his break free. Number 2 receiver at the bottom. He's going to run a little out route. Nobody's around him. He's free to make his break. Okay? Number 1 receiver at the top. I think he's going to go off the screen, but he's going to run a post route as well. They run the same routes on both sides of the field. And then number 2 receiver at the top, nobody's around him when he's making his break, right? Okay, so everybody's free because we're in a zone defense. So that gives us a little bit more time to really evaluate the action. And again, on this one, we're talking about playing through the back. So we're going to focus on our number 2 receiver here at the top of the screen, and we'll watch what happens to him as the ball arrives. Boom. Right through his back to get to the ball. So remember, we talked about on those out cuts, sometimes what we'll see grab and restrict at the top of the route as the receiver's making a cut. That's if we're playing man-to-man defense. Let's say this defender right here was walked up onto this receiver and he was playing man-to-man defense on him. If the receiver got across his face and made his break, that's when we would maybe see a grabbing on his break. But in this situation, he has a free release. They're playing a zone defense. Then as the play develops, nobody's really trailing him or anything. The defender who's going to make a play is coming from another area, and the only way he can make a play on the ball is to go through his back. So we'll see playing through the back. All right? So that's playing through the back. Next play. Okay, let's remember we talked about some of those concepts earlier. We didn't get into press, and all right, I'm getting a little bit off topic again, but that's what I do. All right, press. When we talk about press man, right here, the defender can reach out and touch the receiver. We call that press. The defender can reach out and touch the receiver. We call that press. If we're working 6-person or 7-person mechanics, that's the area that we're focusing on, right? So if your receiver's pressed, you better be locked in on your receiver. Let's say we're working 5-person mechanics. Where's the back judge supposed to be initially focusing? On these 2 receivers right here, right? Well, guess what, Mr. Back Judge? Not pressed, that's 7 yards away. Not pressed, that's 7 yards away. So what does that allow the back judge to do? Find another area to work, to help out on something else that happens, okay? So just think about that. How can I help the crew? How can I help the crew? If my initial responsibilities are such that there's not much for me to do, maybe I can find something else to do. Now, be very disciplined. And when we get to the point where we have some action close to our players, now we need to have our focus here. Okay, so don't get sloppy. If we initially maybe look somewhere else, but we need to come back here because that's our area of responsibility. So we're looking at the top, the number 1 receiver at the top. Remember we talked about if he takes an outside release, it's probably going to be a go route. Well, this is a situation where the defender is giving him the outside. So he probably is going to take an outside release. But what would you expect? I would expect this defender to try to chuck him or something just to try to slow him down. So let's let the play out and see what happens. Number 1 at the top. There he is. You see the chuck? Now, let's say the ball is thrown here right now. Is that chuck enough to be considered pass interference? That's something that you have to determine. Is the receiver pushing his arm away enough to be considered pass interference? Offensive pass interference? That's what we need to determine. So what I would tell you is generally, if we have contact between arms at this point in the route, then we would not want that to be considered pass interference, especially if the wide receiver is simply just throwing the defender's arms off of him. Remember, the defender has a right to jam him and block him legally. He doesn't have a right to grab him, but he has a right to block him, which means contact him within the frame of his body. And an offensive player has a right to knock the receiver's hands off. Offensive player does not have a right to push in the chest or to drive through the defender. Okay, I'm getting off topic again. Number 1 receiver at the top. Here we go. Let's watch what happens. Outside release, deep pass. Notice what we don't see on the field right now. We don't see the side judge. There's the side judge. Really, really, really good job of getting a good cushion, and look, he has his hips open and he's running. This is exactly what we want to see. And now as the ball is arriving and the contact is imminent, we want to start settling in. At this point in time, we want you to start settling in and looking at where? At your strike zone. What is the right arm of the receiver doing? What is the left arm of the defender doing? The right arm of the defender is up in the air, and he's probably going to be bringing it down pretty soon. So what's happening there? That's exactly where we need you to be looking and focusing. If we have a back judge, perfect view, right? Perfect look at that. If you're in a 5-person crew, back judge, you got a really good look at this. 7-person crew, back judge, you have a really good look at this. And the side judge may be blocked out by the receiver just because of the angles that we have. All right, so let's go back and look again. I'll just let it run through. And what do we see? We see the receiver attempting to catch the pass with one hand. And that's not normal, is it? So probably what's happening, and the film isn't as clear as we would all like it to be, but probably what's happening is this defender is hooking the receiver's arm or grabbing the receiver's arm. And remember what we talked about on those go routes. As the ball is arriving, that's why our grab and restrict is going to occur. The defender's going to try to grab that receiver's arm or grab his hand to prevent him from getting his hand up to catch the pass. So this will be a grab and restrict.